Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning for me. Like, I don't know what your time is, but it's yeah, I think it's the afternoon or close to midnight. Welcome. Let's start sculpting. So I made up to this point, and I'm not really happy about the fingers right now. So I think I'll adjust that during this stream. And a bit more details on the dress. Hey, Mordecana. I think there's a huge lack of red wax today, but have to deal with it. Oh, I don't want it symmetrical. I don't know what's up with my nose, but like it's so runny during the autumn season. I think it's the hay fever happening. I don't know which hay fever it is, but I'm very sensitive to like hay fevers and stuff. Can you hear my voice fine? It's detecting the voice, but should be fine. Allergic to red wax, I guess? Oh, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. I've been typing like English for the entire weekends, but like for some reason I haven't been talking in English for a while, so bear with me if I'm like speaking weird or like sounding weird in English. Sometimes this happens, like I can type, but it's very hard for me to like talk. Stream title is wrong. It says Daisuke Narukawa, is it? Well, you don't need to continue on with that meme, I guess. Yeah, the people who don't get the meme, somebody called me Seitsuki in the comment section in the summit. So, Maud is just bringing that up. Yeah, it's a hard name to pronounce, or like it's hard to name to type. Like even I have my coworkers like typing the wrong name or having a typo. Even my boss has a typo sometimes. So it's just hard. I can't blame him. Like, if I start typing like a German name or a Swedish name, it's more harder. Like, I can't. Like, I have a friend who is living in Iceland, and he's basically Icelandish. So he has a specific name I can't really type, and I make a mistake all the time. Like, it happens. It's the same situation when you're talking to a Japanese person as well. Like, my name is Narukawa, but if you ask someone else to read my kanji or my name, they'll read it in a way that's more popular to read. Like, for example, Narikawa would be more popular for that specific kanji, and for me, it's a wrong way to say it, but since it's a popular way to say it, or it's a popular way to read it, more people will call me that instead of Narukawa. So that kind of stuff happens as well. Like, it's not really specific to one language or something like that. Hey there, Daisuke. Hey. See, I can't read your name. Like, Taldon? Taldon? Oh, boy. I'll try to read what they would like to be called. Read my name in Japanese, it's Dominic. Oh, Dominic. It'll be Dominic. Yeah, the way we read katakana is a bit odd. Like, for example, what do you call those? So, for example, if you have a pen, it's not called pen, it's called pen. It's a bit different sounding. Like, for example, I can't really come up with some specific examples. Like, well, that's not particularly true. Well, our media team will handle those kind of stuff, and they'll reach out to you after the event, which is already the case, but we are currently busy with the post-summit stuff. Well, it's a stylus pen, so if you want to say stylus pen in Japanese, it's just stylus pen. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the summit. I enjoyed it myself, just like linking stuff on the comment section and interacting with the comments. It's like the KGB, right? Like if you ask Putin, he will use the pen as a weapon. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, like all the people participated on this sculpt-off, who did the presentations. Paul, Jessica, Joseph, Ashley, Michael Pavlovich, like they all really did a good job. Like all the people who worked in the background as well. Like for example, web team, Kyle specifically. The amount of like stuff he had to deal with. And the people who are currently like dealing with the purchase of the sales as well. Like you might not hear their names that frequently, but like they're part of Pixologic. What I miss about the summit is that it's time to like, it's a really good time for me to like meet another type of family. Like for example, Pixologic has a bit of like a family culture. Like if I go to the LA office for the summit, like you get to eat the lunch as a company expenditure, right? Free lunch, nothing goes bad. And like it's really like it's a unique experience when you're in a company and being able to like meet up with the people who you work with. Like I work in Japan, so like I'm the only guy working in Japan. Like it's like you feel like you're not really connected in the company that much compared to like if you're living in US and like dealing with some items. Like it's kind of like different. And like Summit was the only time you can go there and like meet your coworkers and have lunch. It's yeah, it's a bit different. It's unique. Like I like it. Yeah, like Pab was like holding holding him really tightly, I guess. Well, Paul didn't go off like 90-degree tangents or like like light years above the summit schedule, so that was fine. Well, he's gonna do the live streams pretty soon. I think he will go off on tangents. Some countries lack social interaction. Yeah, like for example, specifically Japan lacks a bit of like social interactions. Like the only like social interaction you have is like drink parties and stuff like that, which I get it, but like it's not my kind of like way of communicating. Like I don't drink like alcohol, so there's no way for me to like bond between people in alcoholic ways. Honestly, I like Tucci's smoke machine, but I don't know about other employees. Well, I don't know particularly about Sweden, but like when I talked to a person who was from Sweden, he was very like strict about boundaries. Like for example, if you ask that person to do something for you after 5 p.m., it's off limits. Like for him, like he wouldn't do anything. For me, it was kind of like weird, but like if that's if that's how it goes in Sweden, like I'm fine with it. Japan's like social boundaries kind of like weird. Like people try to respect your personal boundaries as much as possible, but some people really push and invade that kind of like personal space, and some people really want to avoid personal interactions like as much as possible. Like it's very weird. Like for me, like I don't really feel like I'm pushing the limits, but like some people who are on the receiving side of the end, push well feel that like I'm pushing too much sometimes. So I don't know. I met some people who are more pushy than me, so I have no idea what they're talking about. So like I don't know. Oh, by the way, this disclaimer or a mention that I have to say on for each stream. If you have any questions related to ZBrush Core, feel free to ask. But I can't really answer new things, or I can't really talk about development items. So if you have a feature request, you can send them down to our support team. Like, I had a conversation in Discord a couple of days ago, and people were suggesting a couple of like feature requests, but for me, like, the people who are posting the ideas is not really a bad person. Like, it's just normal for them. But for us, for the receiving end of us, like, we have to look at like the support tickets. We have Twitter accounts who's like replying on the Twitter side. We have to look at the Facebook comments. We have to look at the YouTube comments. We have to look at LinkedIn personal messages. And I had a couple of people messaging me on the personal mail and stuff. So so it's really hard for us to track down which specific feature is requested the most, or which is popular among the users, and what kind of like issues they're like facing, or what kind of like problem they want to solve. And it's very hard for us to track down when there's like so much ways, so much avenues that we need to check. So if you have a feature request, if you have a question, if you have an issue, it's better for the users who's having those kind of like issues, who are having those kind of like ideas, to contact us through support. So just keep that in mind. Just a disclaimer. Well, some ideas are really nice, and like some of the ideas really agree as a developer, but sometimes it's really cost intensive. Like, for example, it's very heavy to make those kind of like stuff, or if it's really performance heavy. Like, for example, if it's really going to slow down your ZBrush experience, or if it's going to slow down the performance of the entire ZBrush itself, it's a no-go, like, usually. So we like, some ideas are really nice, and like it could be easy to implement, but if it's like affecting the performance, or the opposite could be true. It's a really cool feature, but it takes too much time to develop, and like we can't be sure that like it's like cost effective, like, in a way. Like, if we develop something that only a couple of people or couple of users will like be happy about, it's not really worth our time to invest. So those kind of stuff exists, and not all of them are like, some of them are really good ideas, but in reality, it like sometimes, like, for example, we get a lot of requests related to ZRemesher and how to improve that. Like, people want like one-click solution for ZRemesher, and they would just want the entire low poly to be specifically for games and stuff, like game-ready models in one click. That's awesome, but how would you do that? Like, it's algorithmically hard to do those. And if it's an easy solution to do, every company is gonna do that. But like, yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of like things that is really hard to do. Yeah. do ZBrush for me, do the sculpt for me. And like you'll be surprised how much people request those kind of like really good ideas, but they don't have any idea how hard that idea is, for example. But yeah, like they don't really need to care about it as well. Like we take those kind of like ideas into considerations, and if that really doesn't match the reality, we need to like pick and choose which is the best for the user experience. Is the new version going to be called 2021.8? Well, you gotta wait for it. I can't talk about the things that are not like announced, or we can't really talk about the future development stuff, so you never know. Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, like one plugin is fine, but if you start changing things inside the system, it's gonna break the other features, or it's gonna affect the other plugins that's working specifically in that like regards. Like, for example, if you have a hand, and if you want to make the hand bigger, you need to change the glove as well, right? And like if you don't really consider those kind of like stuff, it's very hard to like understand what's going on, because your like glove is penetrating, but you want the hand bigger, right? Yep, I use Snakehook on my workflow mainly. Oh, by the way, the recent question like during the summit was the Snakehook question. So when you currently switch to Snakehook, it pops up a message saying that you need to use, well, it's recommended for you to use the Sculptures Pro as well as Snakehook. And you can turn that off by going to the Sculptures Pro, and it has this option called Once Sculptures Pro. What this does is that if you switch to a specific brush, having this option on, it will ask the user to like turn on the Sculptures Pro when you switch to that brush. So if you turn this off and then save the Snakehook and overwrite it on the default folder, it's not gonna pop that message off. We usually don't recommend you to like overwrite the existing like default brushes, because it's gonna sometimes cause issues. So like don't do too complex stuff, and make sure that you have that backup folder. But yeah, like some items like this, like if you're really using Snakehook frequently, you can do that. Or you can just press the like don't show Snakehook pop-up, or don't show the Sculptures Pro pop-up until the next launch. You can just press that as well. I was about to ask the similar question. Is it possible to remove the pop-up message when you change the mask brush or this like? Oh, you mean this? Like this, right? For this, it's not really specific to the brush setting. It's like it's just showing that you're not in that specific brush mode. So you can't really like remove this unless you press the skip this node until next restart. It's just there for like clarifications, because like for example the beginners might confuse that, like if they select smooth brush and if they don't have any like pop-up saying this, they have no idea like shift key is using that smooth brush. Well, it's there for a reason, so no. I thought Want was a name of a developer or something. Yeah. Want's Sculptures Pro. Well, it's just like the brush wants the Sculptures Pro. Like you can set that to like a specific brush, like if you make a custom brush and that specific brush is meant to be used with Sculptures Pro, or if that's working better if you use Sculptures Pro, then it's better to have that pop-up setting. And since like snake hook, for a lot of people, they didn't really have the better understanding of like you can turn on Sculptures Pro while using snake hook, and that's the reason why we added. Honestly, I like the stretchiness of snake hook, but some people don't, so I don't know. Some things I agree with the users, some things I don't really agree with the users. That happens. Yeah, like I like the stretchiness. Like some people don't like the stretchy polygons. Like for example, if you go to Ashley's stream, like you can see 8-cubed right here. But like for example, she really talks about the triggering people for the crunchy, stretchy polygons. But yeah, I totally agree, because like for example, you can see on like a couple of like demonstrations or like presentations we do, the comments we get is always about topology. Like for example, even we're intending a feature for a specific like concept creation portion of the like creation. Like for example, if you have a rough mesh and we want a feature that's that would speed up the rough creation process, they don't really need to care about topology, right? But usually the question would like fall into like, oh, what do you do about topology and stuff like that. Like I get it, but that's not the point of the feature. So yeah, those kind of like stuff exists, and like sometimes I'm getting triggered, like like yeah, like you can deal with topologies later on, people. Like it's not a priority all the time. Like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, like if you're a bit limited towards like a specific topology, or like if you don't really want to like break topology, sometimes if it's specifically in the creation process, sometimes you're losing ideas, or like you're not really experimenting the ideas enough when you're taking too much care of the topology. Like sometimes you need to break the topology to get a really good idea. And you never know, like. Yeah, like we have CAD people, we have 3D scan people, we have 3D printing industries who wants to make collectibles and stuff, and we have concept artists doing stuff. We have like product designers who wants to make specific stuff. Like we have jewelry. I can't pronounce today. Like we have people who wants to make a like VFX specific items. Games industry people who wants a low poly topology in one click, and those kind of stuff. Yeah, I get it. Like we have a lot of like people who are looking for a different item, and we have people who don't really need to care about those kind of stuff as well. So we have a lot of like avenues. Ooh, I don't really like the arms. Like, my priority was doing the dress itself, but if I look at the anatomy, like, it's not good. Like, yeah. I've neglected the anatomy so much for this model. Yeah, I'm really happy that we have a diverse user group or user experience. And like, and usually the end result only matters when you're like, for example, if you have a good art, the topology can come afterwards, like usually, and you can't really have a good like topology, but like sometimes you have a really good topology, but the artwork sucks. Or you can have the opposite side of where it's a really good art and it's a bad topology. But the one having the bad topology can be fixed, but if the artwork sucks, then why do you need to fix that topology? Like, is Cloth Sim in ZBrush Core? No, it's only in ZBrush. Oh, thanks, comics legends. Really, I can't talk today. Like, I can't pronounce things. Okay, must go to dinner. Hey, have a nice dinner. Thanks. Oh, talking about foods, like, I can't really cook things. Like, yesterday, I've got a steak, a chunk of meat, and I was like reading the instructions of how to make a good steak, and like 2 weeks ago, like I was laughing about the Gordon Ramsay's like raw and like well done discussion, right? And like it's funny, but at the same time, like if I look at my like cooking skills, like it's like level -10, like it's not even level 1, like. And I had to learn a couple of stuff like during my steak cooking experience. Like I know how to set the fires, like settings and stuff like that, but I really lack the skills in the cooking process, so I have to learn, I guess. Like I think like cooking meat is a bit more easier than cooking vegetables because it really like you can see how it's burning right now. But yeah, like I need to cook more vegetables and stuff.おはようございます。はい、お疲れ様。そうですね、自分なんだ、ロサンゼルス時間で働いてるので、まあ、ちょっと早いですけど、こんな時間ですね。For use in game engine or an external render, any tips for cartoon shades on ZBrush models? Well, for cartoon shaders in a specific game engine, you need to go to that specific game engine and then search the term like toon rendering and stuff. Because like each game engine is gonna have a different kind of like shader, and that shader gonna have a specific like rendering setting or a shading setting. So you need to learn those stuff. Like it's not really specific to ZBrush. Like it's gonna apply to any model which is made in 3D in that specific game engine. So it's better to search those terms. Especially you're not gonna make directly a game ready model in ZBrush, right? You gotta retopologize it, you gotta like skin the model, like for example. Unless it's a like rock or some geometrical model that's not gonna move. Yeah, so for example, if I go to like a toolbag model set, they have a different setting for example, they have a different setting for Unreal Engine, they have a different setting for Unity and stuff. So there's a lot of like different techniques for each shading. So you gotta look up those stuff. And there's so much knowledge related to those game engines. So take a look at that. Like I can't really cover that on this stream. And it's mostly not ZBrush related. Like it's not really specific to ZBrush. So even like if you set any materials, if you set any shadings in ZBrush, it's not gonna like be sent over to another software. Like each software is gonna have a different setting. It's gonna have a different material setting. Different software is gonna use that kind of like different information. So. I remember there was a what was it? I can't remember. There was an open source project where they wanted to have a uniformed way of like using the same shaders, or like having the same look for each softwares. I think Pixar was pushing that idea, but usually most major engines is gonna like adapt to it, but at the same time they don't want to adapt to it because it's not gonna make that software unique looking. So you have the conflict between the software companies who wants to make their software stand out from others, but the production company wants to make that rendering not different from the same, different from the other engines. So it's sometimes like counterintuitive to the industry. It's just my opinion. Like, it's not Pixologic's opinion. Like, but sometimes you have those kind of like conflicts for development. Are you the admin of ZBrush Extra Tips? If so, I wanted to thank you for the amazing tips. I just felt like you are the admin. Thank you. I don't know what you. I didn't like. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I appreciate that. Yes, it's me. Like, it's basically me. Yeah. It's not the official account of Pixologic, so it's officially the third-party account on Twitter, making ZBrush tips. I think you can recognize the character's face because I used the exact same model in the one example I made for the tip. So, yeah, if you notice, good watching out. Will it be 3D printed? I don't know. Like, for this, I think it's too big, to be honest. Like, I have multiple projects running horizontally, like parallel to each other, so it's very hard to actually do. Well, it's not really secret, like. Well, if you search the name ZBrush Extra Tips, you can find a account which is just constantly posting a ZBrush tip. 9 o'clock in JST. The account is there for casual ZBrush artists to like just be aware of a feature if like they don't want to watch a video or they don't want to go through an entire like tutorial and stuff like that, but they want the essence of that tip. So that's the intent of the application. No, the account. Why you don't use Marvelous Designer? Because it's ZBrush Livestream. Well, like, honestly, I like the deformer feature in ZBrush, so that's the reason. Why you use Marvelous Designer then? Yeah, and like you can do the same questions other way around as well. But like, I really like Marvelous Designer. as a software. Like they pioneered their own turf or their speciality, and they're really good at it. Like I really like those kind of like applications, and I don't want to step on their foot as well. Like we have a respect to the other applications which is really good at their stuff, and yeah, like I really like those kind of like applications. Hello, do you use dynamics functions for folds in ZBrush or sculpt all by hand? You can check out my past stream, which is just doing that. Well, I covered the entire process of making the actual folds, how to use the dynamic feature, and you can combine how to combine it with hand sculpting as well. So I've covered those topics specifically because I wanted to cover those topics. So you can just go back to the past archive and then take a look at that. So what I wanted to show in this live stream is that you can do complex stuff with using a lot of like combinations of features, right? It's not just one feature to like roll them all, or like it's not a lot of the rings situation when it comes to features. Like you don't need to focus on just one feature. Like you can combine a couple of features to get what the result you want, right? Or you don't need to even use the features as like at all as well. Like some artists prefer to not use any features, but for me, like I want to do something effectively, so I tend to use more features as much as possible when it comes to making things. So there's that as well. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I know a couple of people started to notice it's me, so there's no point of me hiding that anymore as well. Well, I'm like kind of like surprised how many people are actually reading the posts I do, so it's very like interesting. Are you on Cintiq Huion XP Pen? I'm using Cintiq 24. Cintiq 24 Pro, I guess? Yeah. It's the good one. I tried to ask Wacom for a discount, and they didn't really give me any, so it's all from my like bank account. It's worth every dime. Like it's really nice to use it. Well, they didn't like recently. They don't really give out free stuff like they used to, but you know. Well, talking about free stuff, I kind of like. This is my personal opinion. Don't take it like too heavily, but like it's just my personal opinion. But I kind of like hate the influencer culture that's happening in the internet, where the person who is getting the sponsors are endorsing the product but not actually using themselves. Like for example, a person who's getting a sponsor by a famous brand is not using that specific brand personally, and like they do some giveaways during the sponsors. They hide their most used like equipments off screen, but they promote that specific like sponsor or deal. And like I'm not a fan of that kind of like attitude, or like I'm not really a fan of that kind of like industry situations right now. Oh, thanks. I'm not sure I'm good at this stuff, but like I'm trying to be. It's just fun to sculpt, like I can sculpt all day, like 24 hours straight, but well, when I was a student, like when I was like a university student, like I was like I wasn't sculpting back then, but like I was drawing like close to 24 hours, and like I loved so much drawings, but it came to a point where I started puking in the middle of the like I ate lunch before that, and then when I was walking between the classes, I started puking for some reason. Like I vomited, like, and I noticed that, oh, this is not healthy. Oh no, I'm having so much fun. I'm now puking in middle of a lunch break, moving classes, and I'm currently puking in university. Like, it was a very like weird situation. Then I realized that I'm pushing myself too much. Well, in some point of your career, like you need to push yourself to like go forward, but at the same time, please take care of your health. Like, don't be like me. Some brand forced to use it for X time in the contract. I think it depends on the streamer is big or small and the amount of money. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I bet most of the influencer is not playing late like Raid Shadow Legends. They just want to push it to the audience. I have seen a lot of artists on Twitter that they use each part of the body as a separate Dynamesh part, like each finger is a separate piece, which they Dynamesh at the end. What your opinion as an experienced artist with that kind of method? I think it's fine. Like for example, Ian from the ZBrush live streams, IR sculpts. He's splitting each finger joints as he goes like defining the model. And if the end goal is like 3D printing, then just go ahead. Like, you don't need a clean topology for it, right? And if it's easy for you, then it's fine. Like, if that's the way that like you're comfortable with, and if that's the way that results in a better like topology or better like sculpt, then just go ahead. Personally, I wouldn't really split by each segments for especially the fingers and joints, because, well, joints like it's understandable, and like for example, hands are really detailed compared to the rest of the arm, so sometimes you want to split them, and that's totally fair. Like, it fits their method. And for example, I have a separate head, like, and some artists would like to have the neck and the head combined into one, because for animations it's better that way as well. But for me, it's easier to adjust the head size if I want the head size to be a different size, right? So it depends, like, yeah. So it can be faster than having a base mesh. It depends on your workflow, and depends on what your end goal would be. Like, those kind of like optimization questions is usually depends. Like, the answer depends. Like, what kind of topology should I make? Depends. What kind of like workflow should I build? Depends. And it needs to come from experience, to be honest. Like, I can't really help you on the workflow. I can suggest a couple of workflows that could fit the workflow, but the ultimate like choice is up to you. And like, experimenting with workflow is really nice to do while you're like making the like, especially like if you're practicing on a project, it's better to like experiment on the workflow. Like, does the workflow A fits you nicely, or the workflow B fits you nicely? Like, you can experiment. But if you're on a schedule, or if you're like working on a project, then it's going to be really hard for you to do. So I'd suggest you do some like practice runs, or like doing some projects which like closely replicate a specific like a project or the industry standard, or some cases like that, to like try to like see if that workflow fits you nicely. Maybe they do that for easier posing. Yeah, like some people prefer to do that. Like, I don't prefer to do that, because if you have a base mesh which is separated each segment, you can't really go back to those situations. Like, for example, like I can show you one example. If I save this file right now and save it as dress 4, and then if I have a mesh, like, my hand is closed right now, right? But if I load a mesh, like load tool from project, and if I load a model, which is a bit older, like this is the one saved before I started the stream, so this has that open hand, right? And if I want that open hand back, I can just like go back to the lowest situation, export this as an OBJ, and then go back to that like gripped model, and then go down to the lowest subdivision level. And because the topology is not changed, I can import this back and then save, load that original open hand like this. And then if I like this model, I can go back to this model, right? And then if I have a subdivision level, I can do that as well. Like I can add back all the details from the highest subdivision level to the current posed model. Does that make sense? So for me, I'm familiar with this workflow, so I don't want to change, or I don't want to break this workflow while I'm doing the pose. And if I want, for example, if I sculpt something like a scratch mark here, and then if I go back to the pose, then I want the hands gripped back again. And then if I go back to the posed model, now it's gripped back. And then if I want to have that scratch mark back onto the model, I can have that, right? So I'm familiar with this workflow. So I would like to keep the topology as much as same as the base mesh I started with. So I don't usually change the topology while I'm posing, or while I'm making the character models, or adding the details and stuff, so I can go back to the situations. But if you don't have this kind of specific workflow in mind, you don't really need to deal with this stuff. Also, another benefit to this workflow is that since the topology is symmetrical, right? Well, maybe not symmetrical, but yeah, it's fine. If it's mostly symmetrical, you can use the transform and then activate symmetry and then use posable symmetry, and then you can have the brush stroke closely related to the similar position that it's there symmetrical. So you can use this as well. So you can use this knowledge, or you can use this technique in mind and then build a workflow around it, right? So it depends. If you need this specific workflow, if you need this feature specifically, then you need to keep that in mind and then build a workflow around it. But if you don't need that specific workflow, then there's no need to do that. Yeah, so you can build a entire character just using Dynamesh, but that's gonna have a really heavy amount of topology, or you're gonna have a high amount of poly counts and unnecessary poly counts, I may add. So you can have those kind of situations where it doesn't really make sense if you see it logically, but some people do that kind of workflow. Or you can have the situations where you don't really know about the feature, and then you're building a workflow around it, which makes sense because you don't have that knowledge. You're not really aware there's another way to do that, right? Yeah, so for example, I sometimes split the hands because like the hands are really really hard to like pose when it's really like if it's really gripped, you don't really have any like um, you don't really need any spaces in the hands and stuff like that. If that's the case, I usually just like separate the hand and then like have a separate topology and then use that as an advantage. But for this example, like I can keep the base mesh as much as possible, so I don't really need to split the arms. But if I need to split the arms, like I can do that. Also, some poses like for example, if you have a leg which is hitting like this, like it's very hard to sculpt when you have a double sided mesh where it's hitting each other, right? This kind of like stuff, I'd usually just combine it with Dynamesh because I don't really need the opposite side, and then you're not really gonna use that like hidden geometry part as an advantage. So yeah, those kind of like stuff exists, but that's a case by case basis. And if you're making a model which is specifically for like games, videos, and which needs a specific topology, then you're not going to be able to do that. So you need to build your workflow around what you need. And since this is more for like 3D printing or for this specific stuff, I'm just using a 3D print method like in mind, but it's just a casual sculpting, to be honest. Like I'm not gonna print this model, so I don't really need to care about topology. Is the reason I'm doing this kind of like stuff. Like if you need to keep in mind some like topology, then you're gonna have a different kind of like workflow. Thanks. I wanted to have this cloth to be a bit more softer, so I think having a bit of a draping happening here would be nice. Yeah, like I get a question. I get a lot of questions related to workflows, but usually I can't really help that specific workflow unless I really like know specifically what you're working for, or what kind of like stuff you're making, and what kind of like knowledge you have. And like it's really hard to answer those kind of like questions on stream. And even if I get those kind of like all the information's on Discord, it's very hard to like answer. Like sometimes it's better to just think about it itself and then just try multiple things. There's a lot of ways to approach things in ZBrush, and some workflow really fits you nicely, and some workflow really don't fit you nicely. So yeah, you need to try. Like during the summit, I think it was Neville Page, I guess. He was talking about anatomy, and he was talking about how he read the anatomy books. Like he read the anatomy books literally, and he gained so much knowledge, and that made me really laugh. And at the same time, it's so true, right? Like people say they watch tutorials, but they only watch the tutorials like for 5 minutes, or they only watch the portion of the tutorial, and then they think they understood the tutorial entirely. But the actual people who aren't really getting good at ZBrush, or the people who are really understanding the software well, will actually watch the videos entirely and then hear out the conversations, hear out the explanations, read the documents, and then they have a better understanding of the software entirely. Like it's so true that people don't really read, people don't really look at the like reference they're given. And it's the same situation with like references. Like I look at the image, think I'm looking at the image, but I'm not really looking at the image, right? Like I'm not dissecting the image. Like I need to look at it from the different angle. Like does it look straight? Does it like look diagonal? Does it look does it match a triangle? Like for example, if it's like does it have a different slope? What kind of like structure does it have? Like you need to look at the references, right? But I see so much people, and like including myself, like I don't look at the image, and that's a huge issue, right? It's the same with sculpts. Like if you look back on the sculpt, and then like if you start wondering why did I do that, like for example, if I don't have a drape, and then like I'm thinking in my mind that this is a physical object, right? It has gravity, so unless it's pulled from other way, like elsewhere, it's not gonna levitate, right? But in my sculpt, I usually do that, right? Like there's some like mystery gravity, like going upwards, right? And then it doesn't make sense in a physical situation, and it doesn't really look good, or like it doesn't make sense in the sculpt. If it makes sense in the sculpt, like it's fine, but like usually it's not the case. So like I'm looking at the sculpt, but I'm not really looking at the sculpt. So yeah, like you got to keep that in mind. Like when you're looking at tutorials and when you're looking at references, like you have to look at it consciously. Like for example, I'm sculpting on live streams, right? And then if I end my live streams, and then if I wanted to render some images after the stream, I sometimes notice there's some like flaws in my sculpt, and then like I want to fix it immediately, but I'm not really noticing those kind of flaws in the live streams because I'm busy explaining things, or like I'm like busy doing other things, and then I'm not looking at stuff. So oh yeah, So those things are really important. Like, look at it in a literal sense. Like I had a couple of like interactions like, oh, you need to look at this tutorial, and then the person will come back to you saying that, oh, I watched this tutorial, and in that tutorial, like, it specifically mentions in that tutorial saying you gotta turn on this setting. While playing that video, like, you can notice that it's saying that specifically, right? And you send that timestamp to that person, and they'll come back to you saying, oh, I tried this method, and like I asked for a screenshot, like, is that turned on? And it's not turned on, right? Like, I asked the person like three or four times, is that specific setting turned on, because it's covered in the video, and he says yes, it's turned on. And I asked for a screenshot, it's not turned on. Like, what? Yeah, so yeah, those kind of like stuff exist. I don't know why. So what I'm doing right now is more like adding some folds and then cleaning up those kind of like bumpy mess right now. You have the situation where it's not really straight or curvy, and then it has that like small bump which is like distracting you from the entire shape. So like, it doesn't really look fancy in the stream, but these add up really nicely at the end. So if you watch my stream and then like if you compare the images from the beginning and the end, it doesn't really look different. But yeah, like these small like changes add up really significantly at the end, like when you're sculpting things. And usually the biggest difference between a really good artist and the mediocre, like kind of like me as an artist, is those kind of like clearing up the unnecessary portions or unnecessary like details on the sculpt, and like just focusing on where to show or where to like direct the eyes. And really good artist is really good at those kind of like directing eyes and just focusing on a specific portion. Well, I think I'm Japanese, so like when I'm saying, like, I'm not really literally trashing myself, but like, I don't know how to say this, but like I'm being humble, I guess. But like, for example, like Japanese guys wouldn't really like be like 100% like, oh, I'm a good artist. That's just annoying. Even a good artist would say, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, that's Japanese way of thinking. So when is ZBrush 2022 upcoming. I can't talk about specific dates because it's not announced yet. Yeah, exactly. Like, we like to release the features when it's ready. I'm a president of a potato league in 3D. Oh, good for you. Do you live in Japan? Yes, I live in Japan. To be honest, like, I'm 100% Japanese. I don't know why I can speak English. So a lightning struck my head like a couple of years ago, and I started speaking English, I guess. Well, it's not true. Like, I lived in England for 5 years when I was a kid. Huh. Nice. Well, my pronunciation is a bit weird because, like, I have a situation where I learned my British English, and I have the period where I didn't really speak any English, and then I'm learning back the English by watching YouTube videos. So I have that, like, Japanese English, British English, like American English mixed into one, making it really odd. So, yeah, like, when I have a conversation with the person from, for example, US, they are really confused with my nationality and stuff. It's very funny. It's alright. It's alright. Yeah. Yeah, like, YouTube is a good way to, like, learn English. Anime is a good way to learn Japanese. Ooh, Manchester. Yeah, but, like, I lost a lot of, like, English, like, British pronunciations. Like I can't really, like, do it intentionally. But, like, when I say British, like, I don't really say British. Like, it's more like British. So, like, I'm not doing it intentionally, but, like, it's stuck to my tongue. It's pretty funny. Like, I'm like, it's very odd for me. Like, it's especially fun when you have a different pronunciation for Japanese katakana for specific English, and, like, when I'm doing tutorials in Japanese and explaining things in Japanese, I try to pronounce things, or try to pronounce English as much as possible in katakana English, right? So for example, if I have a line, it's a line. It like if it's more alternative or alternate, like there's alternate, but like I say the pronunciation in Japanese katakana, which is alternate, which is different, right? But people here in Japan, if they hear my katakana Japanese, they'll assume it's English pronunciations. So it's really hard for them to listen to me in katakana Japanese or katakana English, because like they say it's the pronunciation is a bit better than the average guy in like speaking natively in Japanese. So for me it's very odd. Like I'm trying to like conform to that specific language, but it's not conforming it well enough that the native like Japanese people understand, right? Like if it's the person who can't really speak English, they'll complain to me that like, oh, the pronunciation is too good, I can't listen to that katakana. I don't know, like, for me it's like very weird because like I'm trying my best to fit that specific language. Yeah. So tell me please ZBrush 2022 before beginning next year. I can't say. I can't say. I don't know, if you torture me, like pull out my nails, I might say, I might curse a couple of times and then say the specific date, but no, I'm not gonna say. Oh, ありがとうございます。おはようございます。ちょっとね、スカルプとね、数日間やってなかったんで、楽しいですね、久々にやるの。Well, it's the English streams I prefer to stick to English. Okay, let's add a bit of a detail, I guess. Let me look at some reference images and let's see what I can do. So I wanted to add a bit more detail, like a side cloth, like a ribbon, essentially. So I'm gonna do that. I can't split Japanese speech into words when watching anime. How to learn it? Well, like, if I like listen to Mandarin or something like that, I can't really split the words between each phrase, like in the phrase. So I think it comes down to experience. Like, if you start listening daily, you're gonna like understand the term as well. But before you start listening to words, like you need to start like learning a couple of like vocabularies. Like if you learn a couple of words, like you can just deconstruct them and then like deconstruct them in a couple of phrases, right? Like for example, if you know a word like road, and if you know a word like bike, like that bike is going through the road, and then you can deconstruct the bike, and then you can deconstruct the road, and then you can think about the middle part, like, oh, he's talking about the bike, he's talking about the road, right? So you just need to like learn the words and then deconstruct the sentence. But I'm not your guy to like learn, like hear me out about languages. Like I didn't really learn languages like using a typical method. Like I was like brute forcefully trained like in like I was thrown into a school like with native like British people. So well, I think native, like I'm a native English speakers, like so I'm not really a guy that is good to ask about languages. Like I didn't really learn. Like I don't know how to learn a language. Like I was thrown into the environment, so I had to learn that kind of situation. Is it normal that I still got no mail from Summit rewards? Yeah, we will contact you later on because we are communicating with the sponsors right now, and then we need to be in communication with the winners. So it's gonna take a bit of time. For sure. Basically, like when they throw babies into swimming pools. Yeah, exactly. Like you're not gonna like learn how to ride a bike. No. Well, the babies can swim, right? Naturally, because of the buoyance. But I don't know how to like teach people how to like speak in a specific language. Like I didn't like consciously like read textbooks to learn, right? So yeah, like I usually get the question of like how do you learn a specific language, and I have no idea. Like I haven't tried that method. Like I'd usually answer watching YouTube tutorials, like watching YouTube videos. And I think I learned like watching Cartoon Networks on British television, British cable TVs. So yeah, I think that's the way to go, like watching anime. Yeah, my friend joked me when he was like asking about these kind of like questions. Like he was telling to others that he learned English from watching Teletubbies. So yeah, maybe true. I did watch a couple of Teletubbies, but I always thought that why on earth this is popular as a kid as well. Like as a kid, I had no idea why this is popular. Like, well, British people, I don't understand you guys. I guess, but I didn't really have a period where I was really into that kind of like stuff as a kid. Like I hated kid toys. I preferred to like read dictionaries instead. Yeah, I was not that kind of like a kid. Like, it's very odd. Yeah, like I think most of the difficulties which comes with Japanese is that you don't really see people talking Japanese in everyday life, right? Like you need to go really in depth to find a person who's speaking Japanese to talk to a Japanese guy, and you don't really have to have that skill. Like usually, if you find a Japanese guy, most of the time they speak a bit of English, like especially if they are living in a foreign country. If it's easy to reach out, then it's easy to like get the guy to speak English or speak in a common language that you have. And yeah, I think that's really distracting when you're like wanting to learn a specific language, but you can't really find a person who speaks that language. But opposite is like you don't really have a problem when you're learning it, like when you're learning English, because you can go onto the website or you can go to YouTube and then you can like read English text all day every day. But yeah, you can't do that with Japanese. Like if you search a specific term in Japanese, then you'll get like a couple of like results which will be able to do that. But it's really tailored to Japanese, right? So it's really heavily in like native Japanese. So it's gonna be really tough. I have a problem with ZBrush. When I stretch object to the down, the object is blocked in the invisible floor. Stretch the object to the down. Stretch object to the down, then object is blocked on the invisible floor. Somehow, someone know how to fix this. I only know enough to introduce myself and say hello. I'm not sure if you're talking about the deformations when it comes to dynamics. Like yeah, for example, if you're using a feature like dynamics, it's gonna hit the floor like this, right? Or if you're using transpose cloth, for example, then it's gonna hit the floor. And for this, you need to turn off dynamics, and then you need to turn off the floor collision right here. So if you turn off the floor collision, it's not going to hit anything, right? Even if like if you're scaling it, and then if you're like using the cloth deformations, it's going to work properly, but it's not going to hit the floor. But if you put the floor collisions on, it's going to hit the floor. Like it's going to stop here. But oh, okay, that solved the question then. Yeah, cloth simulation is really fun. Like you can turn on the self collisions and then put some expand and drop it. It's just so satisfying to watch. Like it's fun. Oh, don't forget to turn back to transpose when you're like rotating the object and stuff. Unless you want the cloth deformations to happen on the rotation. Okay, 10 minutes to go, I guess. I have a meeting after this, so I need to be specific with my time. I think I should put more flowers as well. Like, let me just sculpt some flowers. Oh, let me show another way to make flowers. Like, I showed you last time how to make these kind of like flowers using the last adjust. There's another way you can make flowers using a really simple technique. You make some like crescent shape. Something like this, which looks like a bloom. Bloom? It's more like a, what do you call those, pestles? Well, it's more like a one part of a flower, and then just bring this down and petal. Oh yes, I was gonna say pedestal, and like I was like getting confused. Like what? Was it pedestal? No. Pedestal is a thing that you put on your leg. Hedgerows is really amazing, but really large for printing in 1:7 scale or 1:8 scale. How do you intend to split it, Daisuke? It's not for 3D printing. It's just a casual sculpt. Like, if I'm actually gonna print this, it's gonna be a really nightmarish sculpt because it's taking so much silicon. Like, I'm not gonna make this. And then let's just add a couple of like waves like this. Make it a bit thin. And then retopologize. 1K should be fine. And let's see. So if I go to array mesh, and then you have this axis, right? So if I go to rotate, and then rotate in, I think Z-axis should be fine. Then have some couple of rotations, and then move this repeat to like 16, I think 24, and then it's overlapping each other, and the center of the rotation is not what I want, right? But if I lock the position and then move this off like this, the center position will be slightly moved, right? And then if I set the scale like 0.2, 0.2, and then add a bit more randomness to it. So you can add offset as well. Like you can slide this off. You can like do it more back and front. You can do it sideways as well. But what I want is a bit more of a like unevenness. So what I'm gonna do is then like I'm tweaking the setting like this. I don't like this. Reset. And it's wait a second. So lock size, rotate, scale. I think 360 is fine. 360, repeat. Okay, let me think about this. Like, then I should append once, and then I have a different set of size like this. I can move, lock the position slightly, rotate. And then repeat a couple of times. something like this, right? And I can confirm this. Well, let me just adjust it slightly so I like the results. Like, if the array mesh is on, you can like tweak the original shape, and then the entire like flower is getting affected as well. So you can tweak something like this, and then if you have a mesh like you want, you can convert this to oh, I have subdivision levels. Wait. Where is it? Array mesh. Convert to nano mesh. Oh. Did I do something wrong? Should be fine. Let's see here. Copy, make polymesh 3D, array mesh, paste. Oh, I think I didn't do any weird. Okay, well, oh yeah, oh, I forgot about this. Okay, so if I go to transform stage 1, I need to confirm this first stage, and then you confirm the second one. So you can do the flowers like this, right? And then you can make these flowers individual by using polygroup. And then if I have a mesh like this, and then if you switch to move topological, you can move the individual flowers like this. You can adjust them, tweak them, whatever you like, right? And then if you want something in the center, you can add a separate mesh and then adjust them to your needs. Now you have a big flower on your character's head. What am I watching here? You're watching ZBrush Live, and you're watching me sculpt some Victorian dressed characters. Well, character. And then you can just adjust this slightly. You can adjust the size. I think I just want to combine this into one and then just use that as some simple geometry that I can use repeatedly. So I can register this as an IMM if I want. So create IMM, insert mesh, new. And then I can go to the skirt. I can just select the skirt specifically, like this, duplicate it, and since this doesn't really have any subdivision levels, I can do some inserts like this, maybe a bit of a depth to it. I think embed 5 would be fine. Two in depth, like 20. A bit more, 40. Yeah, something like this. And I can insert this repeatedly. And if I want like leaves to like be around the flowers, I can do that as well. And so if I insert them as nanomeshes, like you can change the entire like flowers mesh and then swap them with each of them, but it kind of like looks repeated, so I'm avoiding that in this way, in this method. But you can totally do that, like it's very fun to do that. I don't need this, I don't need this. Oh, selecting the wrong one. I don't need this, and delete hidden. And you have something like this, which is more decorative in a way. The IMM brush also snaps to inactive subtools, right? Yeah, you can do that. But usually I just want to have a base mesh which is going to like hit, and then I can just delete it afterwards. Like you can just have a star elsewhere and it's gonna like insert the mesh fine, but don't forget about your meeting, brother. Yes, yeah, like I totally forgot about it. Okay, so I'm gonna end my stream here. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll improve my cooking skills next week, and I'll try not to burn the steaks I've got. And see you guys next week, or no, next week. Yeah. I'm losing my mind over like it's coming close to the end of the year already, and it's so damn fast. Like I'm getting old. Okay, thanks guys for watching. Bye.